Perfect.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad to have you with us. We are excited about what we will be learning about on this afternoon. I hope you guys are ready. You got your notepads, your mind open, your heart ready to receive some good information. We are meeting with Ms. Chatman, who has become a successful global culture strategist and community leader. Shantera graduated from Texas A&M University with a Bachelor of Business Administration degree in Information and Operations Management. As the President of PowHer Consulting, Shantera is known for guiding principles, for developing strong cultures, and for her successful work within many Fortune 500 companies. As a transformation specialist, which I am totally here for that, and project manager, Shantera has helped Fortune 500 companies engage their user community and adopt significant workplace cultural changes. Most recently, she curated the Her Way retreat, an exclusive luxury retreat for Black female executives to gain knowledge from one another, as well as indulge in self-care activities. She's coming to us with a host of knowledge, so we are excited to learn from you on today, and we're going to turn the floor over to Mrs. Chatman.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to talk with you today. And so what I'm going to do as I get going is share my screen, and we're going to get started. And I will have some time at the end for any kind of questions. So I'm going to make sure that I have time to just, answer any questions that may be lingering. So we're going to share screens. Let's make sure that, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Okay, perfect. Here we go. And so what I want to talk about today is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and kind of the key to growing and innovating your companies. You may hear a lot about that. You see people talking about, if you want to grow, if you want to innovate, you want to make sure that your company is diverse. You want to make sure that, you have this diversity, equity, and inclusion kind of emerged in your company. And as she mentioned, I help my companies, build strong cultures, and I'm this global culture strategist. But the one thing that I try to make sure that my clients understand is, in order to build a successful company, you have to, one, be genuine, and you want to be intentional about the things that you're doing with your company as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion is concerned. But you want to also understand what it means. And you want to do it authentically, and you want to do it intentionally for your business, and making sure that it is it's done appropriately. So I am a person that loves quotes and affirmations and things like that. And I found this quote by Henry Ford, and you may have seen it and you may have heard it before. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. And to me, that also kind of implies the things that we're doing when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're talking about coming together. We're also talking about what it takes to stay together and work together, because it's not just about checking the box, which in my opinion is what diversity seems to be a lot of. When people talk about diversity, it is, okay, we need this number of people. We need this number of Black people. We need this number of brown people. We need this many women, this many of this type of person. And so to me, that's checking a box. And so yes, you can get those numbers in a room, but you have to figure out a way to stay working well together. You have to figure out how to have a company, how to have a team, how to be able to grow and gel together. And that's, to me, what's really important. So I like to tell a lot of my clients, if you're bringing me in to try to check the box, I may be the wrong person for you. We may not work well together, because I'm trying to help build a culture. I'm trying to help you grow and innovate and stay together and be something that's going to be successful as you move forward. I'm not someone that just wants to go in and help you to just check this box for the sake of taking a picture. You may have heard a lot of people say that, a lot of folks were, kind of performing on social media. They may, just act as if they were diverse, or that they were trying to be something that they're not on social media, just so people can think that they were this woke company. during all of this time, during this time post George Floyd. Well, that's not what I'm trying to be. I'm not trying to be that person to help you look a certain way. I want to be that person that I am that person that goes in and wants to work with people who are truly trying to be authentic, who are really trying to build a company and a business that means something, and wants to have a mark in their community that it really shows that they're trying to build a strong team. So when I talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I like to use this analogy that you may have heard before, which is kind of this analogy of a dance. And it makes it a lot easier. It makes it less stuffy and a little easier for you to understand, which is diversity is like being invited to a dance. Inclusion is being asked to dance once you get there. And equity, that's being asked to join the planning committee or add to the playlist. So that's being really involved in building on something. So when you're talking about these three pieces, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you're thinking about your business, you can think about this idea of being at a dance or at a party where it's, okay, there's this dance, there's this party going on, and okay, you got everybody there. So that's the one thing. That's diversity. Everybody's in the room. So we've kind of checked the box, right? Inclusion is once they're there, we kind of are including them a little bit by asking them to participate somehow. And then equity is, how are we allowing them at the table? Are we allowing them to pick a song every once in a while? Are we allowing them to make a decision? Are we including them in a process in somehow? And so that's the difference between those three words. I see, do we have a question in the chat? Something popped up here on the screen. Oh, this says great visual. Oh, thank you. I saw something on the screen. I wanted to just make sure. So now, we want to talk about being intentional. And when we say growth, return on investment, we're talking about your money. We're business people here. So everything is about making sure that our bottom line stays healthy. Our bottom line needs to stay healthy. We want to keep growing. We want to keep building. And so if businesses are intentional about this diversity, this idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and building a staff that's diverse, that has strong backgrounds and has strong thoughts, have different thoughts and different backgrounds, they will start to naturally see this increase in their return on investment. And you're like, how is that? Well, because everybody has these different ideas. They have these different perspectives. And when you bring people in that are truly intentional about bringing something to the table for you, and you're intentional about making sure that the people that you bring in are not just people that look different, but they are different from the standpoint of how they think and what they are bringing to the table, that's when you start to see that growth. That's when you start to see the change in your bottom line. Because you may be thinking, well, my business is not one of those, big Fortune 500 businesses. It doesn't matter. When you're intentional about doing something differently, when you're intentional about the types of people that you bring in the room and how you interview someone and how you talk to them about their thought processes, that's when you see a difference. Because when you think about it, you are leading your business. You are the person that thinks about it all the time. You're thinking about how you want it to grow. You're thinking about how you want it to be just this big, successful, dynamic company. And you bring in someone who just really doesn't care. You bring in someone who's just like, well, it's a paycheck. And then you interview someone who's just as excited as you are. They have just as much ambition. They are so excited and they're thinking of new ways to innovate, regardless of if you are someone who is a landscaper, if you are a nanny, if you are someone who is a window washer, it does not matter. It's all about the perspective, and it's all about the person that you are bringing into your company and how they see themselves moving forward. That is what you need to be intentional about, who you bring into your space. And that's when you're going to see that growth, or you're going to see that decline. Because when you bring people around you that don't care, that's when you start to see things start to flounder. It's the same, professionally as it is personally. Now, DEI is not just about all of the color mixes, as we're just talking about. It's not just about racial divides. We need to think about the perspectives that people bring to the table. We need to think about the diversity of thought, because that's really where the rubber meets the road when we're talking about business. That's really where all of our money's made, because we want to have people in the room surrounding us. We want to have those people around us that are thinking differently than we are. We want to have those people in the room who have different, fresh ideas. Me, I tend to kind of find myself sometimes getting kind of in a box, because I kind of drown in my own ideas. I have these great ideas, and then all of a sudden I find myself drilling down into this one idea. It's so great, and I got to get it done. I got to get it done, that I forget that there may be another idea somewhere. There may be something better. There may be something new, because I'm so headstrong, and I'm so intent on achieving the one great idea that I had in my head, that I'm not looking up, and I'm not looking around at other things that have been uncovered. So having different people around me that see all of the other things is important. So it's about perspective, and those different perspectives lead to innovation. They lead to more creative ideas. They lead to different products, different streams of revenue, and all of those things, because we tend to, kind of put our blinders on, and we just kind of move forward, and you don't know what you don't know. So for me, I see it as just this huge opportunity, all of these things that we don't see, because we haven't come from where everyone else has come from. We haven't seen what other people have seen. And I have this group that I tend to be connected with, Lunch Club. And some of you may have heard of this organization, Lunch Club, where you can sign up to meet these different people. And it's become a huge thing during COVID. And it's kind of like this, kind of quick dating game, I call it, because these 45-minute meetings, and they're virtual, and you can meet people from all over the place. And I have met people that do some of the same things that I do. And they live in Africa, and they're in Europe, and they're all over the place. And they have these great ideas that I have never thought of. And I'm thinking, man, I'm so glad that I met you, because I never thought that I could do this way or that way. And I have these new colleagues now, or they've just thrown another idea at me, or they've given me a new client. And so that is just different perspectives, different ideas that I've never thought of, and thought of in a different way. And now I have these people that are now a part of my business, that had I not opened myself up to this opportunity that another friend told me about with Lunch Club, I would not have. It was a free opportunity, and I would have told her, no, I don't want to do this. But I did. I opened myself up, and I gave myself 45 minutes once a week to meet someone different, to have a conversation with someone that's different from me. And now I have this whole nother, this new network that I can share ideas with. So I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek. He talks about things in a different way. He and I tend to think sometimes the same, but he's known worldwide, so people know him a lot more than they know me. But I love to hear his thoughts on things, because as I talk about perspective, he talks about perspective differently, and we seem to say the same things but say it differently, and he gets it out in a different manner, sometimes faster because he speaks so quickly, but at the same time, it's a little bit more profound. So I want to share with you this video where he's talking about diversity and inclusion, but he also talks about this idea of perspective and talks about it from the standpoint of business. So hopefully you can hear this, and let me know if you cannot, but I think you should be able to hear this.
So here's what happens when you give someone cause, right? You look for all the ways to bring that cause to life, and you need the diversity and inclusion to see opportunity or see breaks that are gaps, because we all have different perspectives and different upbringings. Not better or worse, different. Yeah. Different, right? It's like even, let's just draw the line on like racial lines. We're like, you know, rich people are happier than poor people. Are they? You know, it's like, I know some people who came from meager means, who they understand teamwork, they understand resilience, they understand loving your mother, they understand gratitude, they understand hard work better than anybody, and they are good. Yeah. And I know some people who came from very wealthy means that never learned the skills of adaptability, that never learned the skills of coping, because everything came easy, and they struggle through life. So it's how you approach it. It's not the circumstances. This is Viktor Frankl stuff. If you can't change your circumstances, you change yourself. You know, this is Viktor Frankl 101. We cannot control the world around us. What we control is our attitude. And so what diversity and inclusion is all about is about perspective. And so when you give people cause, they will look for ways to bring the cause to life through their perspective. So we have a cause in these United States. Our founding fathers wrote down for us in the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. This is an idealized state that we will never get to, but we will die trying. And different people who have different perspectives, you can see trying to bring that cause to life. The abolition of slavery, women's suffrage, civil rights, gay rights. Somebody with diverse opinions and diverse upbringing said, hold on, I'm still not included in that. And so, you know, we start a new effort, and all of those imperfect and ongoing in their own rights. So when we have a vision, when I say inspired, safe, and fulfilled, I only have my own perspective. Yeah. And I have unconscious bias, and I have blinders. But if I have lots of people on my team, we all have our own unconscious biases, and we all have our own blinders, but together we have a broad view. Yeah. And I need people from different religions, different races, different sexuality, different job experiences. I need people who have experience in something we've done before. And I love hiring people who have no idea about this job because they'll bring a new perspective. Yeah. I love putting people in jobs they don't know how to do. Just like I'd like taking people who are different than me and saying, how would you solve this problem? And that's the thing we forget. Which is, you said, it's a program based on numbers and based on color or sexuality. It's none of those things. It's about perspectives. And different people have different perspectives and different upbringings and different perspectives, and all the, you know, infinite number of perspectives that exist in the world because of all the combinations and permutations. Yeah. And the best companies are diverse because they have diverse thinking, right, diverse ideas. Right. We make jokes constantly about, you know, boards or companies that are made up of old white men. Why? Because there's one perspective. That's the joke. The joke is it's one perspective. Yeah. And so the counter to that is, if it's not just old white men, but it's a diverse group of people with diverse experiences, magic happens. If there's a shared set of values and a shared vision. Without the shared values and the shared vision, then all of that diversity will subdivide into their little tribes, and they'll go and eat at the lunch tables all completely separately. And then you need your diversity and inclusion program because you never understood it in the first place. So here's what happens when you give.
So he is, you know, he tends to speak very quickly, but what he said was absolutely perfect, because it's all about that shared vision and having all of those different perspectives that come to the table. Now, once you have all of those people that come to the table and they have all of those different perspectives, you have to train them. You have to train them on your vision. You have to train them to understand how to work your way. And that's how you enhance your talent pool. That's how you start to grow, and you start to grow your team. And that's that professional development that allows your team to now start to become your raving fans. Because training your employees and those with that diverse background, that's when the rubber, to me, meets the road. Because some of those people with those diverse backgrounds, they may not be people who felt like they could, kind of start to grow within an organization. And you may be thinking, well, there's not too many tiers. I'm kind of a flat company. I don't have too many tiers. I may have maybe one or two. You may be able to, move up to be maybe a supervisor and maybe a manager, and that may be it. That's fine. Because you may have people on your team that may not have ever thought they could go move up to be a supervisor or even be a manager, because they didn't see that within their organization. Within their families. For me, I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college. And so I didn't see a lot of people in my family. I didn't see any really who didn't just go to work. And there was nothing wrong with that. They were just working. My family is full of people who just worked. They went to work, they paid their bills, and were family people. That's fine. But I didn't see anything beyond that. I didn't see anyone in corporate America. I didn't see anyone owning their own businesses or anything like that. So there was not anyone to model after. And it wasn't until I watched TV that I saw someone that was like, oh, I can do that. I saw Claire Huxtable on TV and thought, oh, look at that. There's a brown woman. There's a Black woman who's in corporate America, who's doing her own thing, who's speaking Spanish, all of these things. And so you may have heard the terms representation matters, because it does. So as you are growing people from diverse backgrounds, they start to think, they may be thinking, I hadn't had this before. So now, as you're growing them and they're reaching these next levels, now you're creating people who may have thought of an area that may be impossible. And so now they're loyal to you. Now you are creating these team of people who are now talking about your company in a way with the people in their neighborhoods and with people on the streets and people that's in their families in a way that you hadn't had before. So now your company is not just a company that a nanny service. Your company is now a pillar in the community. Your company is not just a regular company. Your company is now an organization that builds, that holds up. So it is now something different. People see you as different. And that's now you're seeing how diversity, equity, and inclusion is starting to build something. It's starting to become more than just something is building, it's making you money, and it's growing you, because now this person is staying with you longer. This person is making you more money because they're staying. They're also doing better. They are growing more. And so you can charge more for their services. They may also be someone that's going to be hiring now. And they're going to be looking out for your well-being. So all of these things, everything is a positive now, right? So you can see how things are getting better for you. Now, this last piece to it is this connection with the community. So we started to talk about how they're going back and now they're speaking into the community about how well you are. But now it's about you. And it's about how you are no longer seen as just that person that's taking from the community or that company that's taking. Diversity, equity, and inclusion also says that you're no longer just taking, you're giving back. You're no longer seen as that company that is taking away. You're seen as that company now that says you're investing because you're investing in my people. You're investing in my mom. You're investing in my dad. You're investing in my kids. Maybe, on different holidays or something, you're giving back in a community in a different way. You're doing something that's a little bit different. So you're not just selling or taking away, you're giving. You're now seen in this totally different light. So diversity, equity, inclusion says, I am trying to have empathy. It says, I am empathetic. I am a company that cares, and I am going to have intention when I'm doing things. It's not about checking a box. It's not about just about just bringing someone in for the sake of a photo op. It's about hearing their voices. It's about making sure that they feel comfortable. It's about making sure that they know that they have value within the company, that I want to be able to start growing them, that I want them to feel like they can grow. And also, if they do not feel that way, that they're comfortable opening their mouths and saying so. Because see, that's something that's really key too. A lot of times we as leaders say, okay, I have this open door policy. People can come tell me anything. Well, if they are not comfortable enough speaking to you, that means that you haven't done your job. You haven't done your job to make them feel comfortable enough to come and speak with you. So the question is, how do you do that? How do you make them feel comfortable speaking to you? And also taking it back to the community, how does the community feel comfortable enough to even say, hey, what are you doing for us besides taking mama away? Or what are you doing for us besides, coming in and saying what you need from dad, or so on and so forth. What are the things that you're doing? How are you opening the door? How are you asking the question? Or are you even asking? Are you just showing up? Are you just standing there? On payday, are you just electronically sending the paycheck and that's it? What are the things you're doing to show up? Are you recognizing them on their birthdays at a minimum? Are you saying thank you for jobs well done? Are you recognizing them by name for those jobs well done? Anything. What are those little things? What are those bonuses that you're giving out? All of those things to ensure that people know that you see them as people and not just as a number, or the people that are giving, increasing your bottom line. So those are the things to ensure that you're connecting as humans. The one thing that I've learned during this time, and I say this time because after George Floyd's murder, it seems like things shifted a little bit, especially in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion, that there was such an urgency to make sure that everyone had diversity covered. And there were some companies that wanted to do it, like I said, just for the sake of doing it. And then there were some that just didn't know where to go. And they didn't know what to do, and they were overwhelmed, so they didn't do anything. They just kind of froze. And then there were some that were genuinely interested. And so what I would say to any company that's trying to figure out where they fit, I would say, think about it. Step back for a minute and say, what is it that I can do? Maybe one or two things that I can do for my people and then for my community. And when I say my people, meaning my team, my organization, and then what are one or two things I can do for my community realistically? And what can I do well? And if you don't know what those things are when you step back and think about it, ask them. Do not assume, because if you don't know, that means you haven't had a conversation. And it's great to have those conversations. Have the conversations with your teams and with your organizations and say, what are the things we're missing here? What haven't I done? What do you feel like we need to do? And just get a running list. Get a running list And then look at that list, because the list is going to be long. And some things are going to be realistic and some things are not going to be realistic. And from that list, pick one or two things and just start to try to figure out how you can do those things and do them well. I want you to remember that a focus on diversity is not just a moral principle, but it's a practical step. And it's a step that can significantly enhance your company's success and ability to compete. But it also needs to be this intentional step that feels comfortable to you. You don't want to look to your left and your right. You don't want to look to what someone else is doing. Think about what feels right to you. And you also, it's not a race either. This is one of those things that's a marathon. It may take, one company 6 months to get somewhere that may take you a year, and that is fine. As long as you get there, as long as you're constantly moving forward, you're doing fine. Do not worry about what other people are doing. Pick your one or two things and work hard at them, and make sure that your people are okay with what you're doing. As long as your staff and your clients are fine, you're doing fine. You don't have to worry about what others are doing. You also don't have to take pictures of everything you're doing and post them online either. It's not about the photo ops. It's not about the social media pics. And yes, those are great if they're genuine. Those are great if your clients are okay with it, if your team members are okay with it. But if they're not, leave it alone. Because the one thing you don't want to come off as being is disingenuous. A lot of times companies will fight so hard for the picture, or they will fight so hard for the story, but the story is not true, or the picture is skewed. You want to ensure that if you get the picture and if you get the story, they're true and they mean something. It's not just about that moment. It's about the extended, life of the image beyond the moment. And that's what you want. You want that client that's been with you and that's gonna stay with you. You want that employee that's been with you and that's gonna stay with you. That raving fan that says, I love how they treat me. I like that he went to bat for me when someone spoke improperly of me, when someone said something to me that was disrespectful. I love that, that they didn't allow this to happen to me. Because when someone doesn't advocate for you, you know what that feels like. And you also know what it feels like when someone does. And they both stay with you for a very, very long time. I know that I remember what it felt like when my tires were slashed when I worked at NASA. I also know what it felt like when I was told to just get over it by my boss the very next day when I went to work. I also know what it felt like when I had a boss who kind of took up for me when I couldn't afford to go to, a company event, and he knew the reasons why, but he never told anyone. He just paid for it with his company credit card and never told a soul. So I know the difference between having someone that's a true ally and having someone who just didn't care at all. So I know what that feels like, and they both stay with me. I mean, because I still have the tire in my garage right now, and it's been 20 years. When it was slashed, it's still there. And every time I look at it, I still kind of burns. So we understand those feelings. And I don't even work for that company anymore. And we know what those feel like. So think about it. Think about what you can do and what you're willing to do. So I tell people all the time, when you take that inventory, there's so many things you can do. There's so many things you can do with your team. There's so many things you can do with your clients, but also think about what you're willing to do. And that's where you stake your claim, what you're willing to do. So you have to be honest with yourself. The can do is one thing, but the willing to do is where you want to stay. That's where you are, because sometimes we're not willing to do anything. And if you're not willing to do anything, be honest with yourself. Be honest with your team, because you don't want to have everyone thinking, oh, we're going to do this, have this huge initiative and we're going to move forward. And then you fizzle out. And then you have a team that doesn't think anything of you, and they're disappointed, and morale gets low. Be very honest about yourself when you move into these efforts. So I want you to just think clearly as you move forward, and think about how you want to address diversity, equity, and inclusion in your business. And also just be realistic. How much time do you want to put into it? How much time realistically can you put into it? And just, set yourself some goals. Set some goals with your team. Be open, communicate clearly with them, and make sure that they're on the same page with you. And just trust that they're going to be along for the ride with you. Just don't try to make it too big. Be realistic with yourself. And so the last thing I want to do is just kind of invite you to stay connected with me before we go into the Q&A part of this, because I want to give you an opportunity to talk to me or ask any questions, through chat or whatever about any of this, because this is kind of one of these things that, is a little difficult to try to figure out what you want to do. Take out your phones and you can take a snapshot of this QR code, and it takes you to kind of my site with all of my information, where you'll be able to connect with me via email or on my LinkedIn page or anything. You can snap that, connect with me whenever. You can ask whatever questions you have, anytime after this. I'm really open to that. Then we can, I can answer any questions that you may have for me.
This has been totally awesome. So wonderful. So we are going to go to the questions now. We have one question that was submitted that, what are some great questions to add to our family or nanny applications that support DEI?
And so I'm going to submit, or I think I did submit some questions that you'll be able to share after this, that you'll be able to give to them. But there's a couple of questions that I think that stand out, that I think that that you'll be able to get some really good feedback from. One that I really like is, and it's, I'm paraphrasing here, it's, give me an instance where you had to, where you were almost like where you were insulted, or someone said something to you inappropriately, and you had to overcome that situation, and give specifics, kind of share that example. And that it gives that person the opportunity to share what happened in this scenario and how they were able to kind of come out of it. How did they respond to the other person, and what happened at the end of that scenario? And what it does is allows the person who's giving the interview to, one, hear from the person who's being interviewed, their perspective on a situation where they may have been insulted or someone said something to them inappropriately. How, one, their temperament, how they respond to that, because sometimes it does happen, whether it's a client or a coworker or someone, and how they respond. And really you start to hear from them their thought process around certain words, certain things. Did they, use their words properly, or how did they, use actions one way or another? And then you get to see if it aligns with your values and with your company's values.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Another question is, what are the most common form of microaggressions?
Most common forms of microaggressions. I would say one is, it's kind of like an assumption where someone will assume that's depending on the person's job, assume their education level. So if you see someone that may be work as a domestic in one way or another, assume that they're not educated. So someone will say, oh, you may not know this, but, and so they will, start to talk to you, assuming that you may not have graduated from high school, or you may not have graduated from college or whatever. It's that assumption that because you're in a certain position, you may not be educated. So that is definitely a common form of microaggression. For Black women wanting to touch their hair, that's definitely a microaggression. Also not pronouncing someone's name properly. Even after you have told them, they still want to say it another way, or saying, well, I'm just gonna call you something else, trying to give you a nickname instead of asking if it's okay to give you another name.
Those are great. That's really great. Someone also said, how can I employ a more diverse team when they don't see themselves reflected in our current workforce and may not want to join us?
That's a very good question. If you are trying to employ a more diverse team and they don't see themselves reflected there, I would say if you have someone on your team, if your team is not all white or all Hispanic or all Black or what have you, if you have at least one of those, one person from the group that you're trying to employ, use that person to help you recruit.
Gotcha.
Because they'll be the person that'll probably help bring them, or ask that person, what are you missing in your recruiting process? Because they will be able to, kind of provide you some insights into what you may be missing.
Thank you for that. Another question is, do you find that you encounter issues that are unique to the nanny agency industry and require specific attention and care that differs from what you would consider a normal or usual business?
Actually, I haven't found anything that's different or unique besides the one about assuming that someone's education level is lower. That's the only one that I've found.
Thank you for that. What are some of the biggest obstacles to success in the areas of DEI?
Biggest obstacles to success in the area of DEI, I would say that there's so many people doing it. So trying to kind of cut through that the fact that there's so many people doing it, definitely since post George Floyd, that everybody wants to work in DEI and to try to prove that you are truly authentic in the work, because I've been doing it for a long time, and to kind of cut through that, and also proving your worth. A lot of companies still don't want to pay your worth. So always having to kind of prove your worth to corporations.
Thank you. The last question I had was, what are some palpable steps that someone can take today to improve cultural awareness and belonging on their team?
I would say one is increased conversation. So having listening sessions with your teams, and maybe without leadership involved. So maybe having listening sessions where you have an external person facilitate the listening session, minus the leaders, or having a leader session separate from the team. Also allowing for opportunities where people who are not typically, so where leaders are not leading every meeting, giving other people an opportunity to speak in discussions or lead discussions. I've seen where some clients are allowing other people to lead team meetings. So they do kind of like a round robin where someone leads a meeting every week that's not the leader of the group. So that's been good for the teams.
That's a great suggestion. I'm gonna have to do that tomorrow. All right, do we have any other questions for Ms. Chatman? If not, we're going to remind you that the recording of this session will be available, I believe, within the next 7 to 10 days, and you should receive a copy of this particular session via email. If you are interested in contacting Ms. Chatman for any future business, to consult with your agency, or to ask her questions, as she provided her contact information, we will also send that out along with the recording of this particular session. I want to remind you that we have another session coming up in May. It will be on May 19th, Thursday, May 19th. It's called Catchphrases: what to say in difficult, sticky, or uncomfortable situations. You won't want to miss it. We will have a panel of industry experts speaking to us and giving us insight, sharing stories. So if you find yourself in that predicament or have and wondered what to do, this will be a great session for you to attend. I want to remind you that APNA is committed to professional development and increasing our skill set as agencies so that we can go out and affect the world. Thank you so much, all of you, for your time, and we hope to see you next time.